Hello everyone. So Desantis came out like the badass he is and says that he wants to crack down on protest and he wants to expand on the stand your ground law. There's more to it than just that though. He also wants to offer immunity to drivers who claim to have unintentionally killed or injured protesters who block traffic and withhold state funds from local governments that cut law enforcement budgets. In an article by the Tampa Bay Times, they write, Governor Ron DeSantis has drafted, quote, an anti-mob legislation that would expand Florida's, quote, stand your ground law, a move that critics say will allow armed citizens to shoot suspected looters or anyone engaged in, quote, criminal mischief that disrupts a business. And we told everyone out there that this was going to happen. If you riot, if you violently protest, there are going to be laws that follow suit that are going to be against you. They're not going to take your side and make laws for you. They're going to make laws to make businesses work. The number one thing that everybody should keep in mind is the economy. If it does not run, you have homeless people. You have compounded insult to injury. People are complaining now that COVID is supposed to be outrunning the hospitals. Well, what happens when homeless shelters are all booked up? What happens when people are homeless and they have to go to the hospital because of that situation? Because they got sick. Because of that. They don't put any urgency in the idea of somebody having a job and being able to afford basic needs. They assume that they can provide it via the government. But not everything is so simple. And pulling from the government for only so long is not going to go well in the long term. But we read on. Lawyers say it's just one of the many troubling aspects of the draft bill being pushed by the Republican governor in response to police brutality protests that erupted across Florida and the United States this summer. And these weren't police brutality protests. These were actually angry mobs of people going out burning things. Let's be quite honest. We all saw the videotapes of business owners being dragged down the street and beaten. We watched videotapes of people getting out of the cars trying to defend their probably one and only vehicle, their one and only means of conveyance to and from their job or their families. We saw people that were dragging people out of the cars and beating them. We saw people do all kinds of horrendous things. And as we read on with this article, you're going to see more things that when you hear them, you can't believe you heard them. Quote, it allows for vigilantes to justify their actions, said Denise Georges, a former Miami-Dade County prosecutor who had handled the stand your ground cases. Quote, it also allows for the death to be the punishment for a property crime, and that is a cruel and unusual punishment. We cannot live in a lawless society where life is taken so casually and recklessly. And I think she actually is saying the truth here. As much of a liberal, progressive, crazy lady as this person is, she ironically enough speaks the truth. We cannot live in a lawless society. You're right, lady. You're right. If people think that they can keep on coming into a store and stealing stuff, they will. In California right now, we've seen videos where people preemptively get garbage bags and go to stores and load up to $1,000 worth of stuff and then just randomly leave. Store owners are left holding the bag on that one. Is there any kind of insurance that's going to cover that outcome when there's no police available to respond or call? We just wonder, is it the criminality that you want, or is it the criminality of everybody else that happens to be Americans? And life is taken casually and recklessly. If a person wants to steal, loot, burn, murder, commit crimes, they open themselves up to a world of hurt. And any and all options are on the table. We have to say, if a cowboy, a ninja, a samurai, a criminal, a murderer, it doesn't matter, a normal person throws a rock through a window of my business, be prepared for something to be thrown back. It really is as simple as that. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The largest problem with this country in particular is the left. They've allowed the rioters and looters to get away with not only ruining businesses, but harming people. Actually, murder. We're talking about Mr. Dorn. We're talking about business owners that were just trying to defend their property. Remember, the media says mostly peaceful protests, yet for where the peace is broke, no one takes accountability. People have the right to free assembly, but they don't have the right to riot. This bill only allows the innocent to protect their property, and more importantly, themselves. After all, it's only already written in the Constitution. And if there was a problem, and why you should fight it, here's your argument. What is the problem? I thought the protests were peaceful and the rioters didn't damage property or steal. If they are peaceful protests, this should have no impact on it whatsoever. We here at Dang It Don, we think it's absolutely great. This is just another state living by the Constitution, and we are totally proud that it's our home state. An armed society is proven to be a peaceful society. The right to peacefully protest doesn't include looting. People have the right to protect what is theirs or their neighbors. This is really honestly a good day for Florida. But we can hear the lefty lefts now. The questions coming out of their mouths are going to be numerous, such as, if a protester destroys property, can we shoot all of them, or just a few closest to the looter? And how much property damage must there be to just a window, maybe a mailbox? Or if protesters are blocking the street and they scratch my car with something, how big of a scratch would there need to be before I can open a fire on them? We can see all the lefty ideologies that are going to come into play here, but this is Florida, this is Ron DeSantis, and it sounds like we have a bigger backbone than the rest of the United States. This is how it should have always been. New York would have done a lot better in this pandemic and all around if they'd have had a governor quite like DeSantis. We're just going to go ahead and say, when you block a street and you loot, you aren't using freedom of speech. That's just simply a felony. If you look around the country, these mobs are definitely getting out of control. It's time to take their confidence away. Lawlessness is here, and it's probably time to defend yourself. As sarcastically as we can say, does this mean I can come burn your building down or throw bricks at you or I might get shot? Does this mean there might be actual consequences for my actions? Oh no. You have consequences for your actions, so you're okay with thievery, thuggery, you name it. Going by what the Democrats in their platform is with non-violent crimes, we can only surmise that Al Capone would still be free to this day. And we gotta say, living in Florida, we're all for it. Our riots aren't crazy like all the blue states, so we shouldn't have to worry too much. But we all know these billionaires like to bus in looters into cities and states and pay them to cause chaos. And this is going to be a rude awakening for them. As gun owners, we're not going to be out there trying to police anything or draw our firearms because we have them. We only have them to protect ourselves. Despite what the media is trying to label us as bad guys or some type of security squad, most of us are just trying to simply defend ourselves. To us, this is just an equal opportunity program. Each bullet knows no race, no age, no religion, size, or gender. And every person who decides to enter will qualify. So if you don't want a slug to the dome, don't loot. To all the parents out there, mothers especially, you have two options. Either start preparing and making those buttons now on your child's face and name to pass out to the funeral and news briefings, or sit them down and tell them there are actual consequences for their actions and start getting involved and make sure your out of control child isn't among the fray. GoFundMe and the big names of the sports industry aren't picking up the slack financially or putting your kid's name on their helmet. And while we're complaining about this, bad job by the news covering this. Completely one-sided. For some asinine reason, it never seems to be the law-abiding citizens' side of the story. We'll go ahead and leave you with a prediction. We predict that the legislation will be very unpopular with rioters and looters. Also with Democrats, liberals, socialists, and communists. But here I am being redundant, right? If you're one of those people who are going to say this law is actually dangerous, we want to go ahead and say, too bad. Don't riot or loot. If it's a rioting or a looting situation, get yourself away from that situation. Leave immediately. If it's a situation that you shouldn't be in the first place, maybe you should have gotten shot at. When you go out and commit a crime, you risk your life in various different ways. And we're all supposed to bend over backwards for the criminal so that they don't get killed. Liberals, Marxists, communists, socialists, violent rioters, arsonists, etc. Just simply don't come to Florida. Don't live here if you want to coddle violent rioters. It seems pretty obvious to us. This here is why I like Florida. It is okay to kill the bad guys before they can kill you, within limits, of course. The U.S. was not built on people allowing mobs to loot, steal, burn, or murder. This is ultimately the right thing to do for its citizens to be able to protect themselves, as well as to protect their homes or businesses. We have the right to protect our families and homes according to the Constitution. We certainly wish that the other Republicans that run other states would do the same, and Democrat-run states as well. But we won't hold our breath for Democrats doing anything of the sort. In an article by The Hill, they write, "The legislation was drafted amid the series of protests this summer over the police killings of an unarmed African American. The protests began after the death of George Floyd in police custody. While many of these protests were peaceful, some turned violent. The violence drew the attention of President Trump, who repeatedly blamed it on Antifa and the radical left in a bid to portray himself as a law and order president. The Trump administration had been heavily targeting protesters since then and has been more aggressive with charging them." Of course, to counter what the Hill's saying is that we've had movie stars, actors, billionaires from other countries, and the government themselves in Congress, the Democrats in Congress, bailing out these quote-unquote peaceful protesters. DeSantis pledged in September to crack down, quote, on violent and disorderly assemblies, the Herald notes, pointing to unrest in other parts of the country amid Floyd's death. Quote, "It's clear that the Trump beauty pageant is still going on with governors and senators who all want to be the next Trump," Dan Gilbert told the newspaper. "Go ahead, have a legal demonstration and protest all you want. Break a window, bring incendiaries, assault and terrorize restaurant patrons, interrupt commerce sectors, destroy the lives of employees and business owners via looting. That is insanity. In fact, it is actually warfare, as defined in most Maoist and Marxist manifestos. For that, you risk your life. And that, sir, is called consequences." Anyway, you folks have a good afternoon, a good morning, a good evening, whichever. Please like, share, and subscribe. We really do appreciate that around here. Also, leave a comment down below. We like to talk with you. We like to pick your brain. And if you have any ideas for new videos, go ahead and leave a line down below. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell. If you don't hit the notification bell, you're going to have a hard time getting our videos. God bless each and every one of you. See ya.